Hey everyone, welcome to Garden Fork Radio. You're here with Rick and Eric.
Good morning, my friend. How are you, Eric?
I'm great. It's it's kind of normal weather here for once. So,
what does that mean for you?
it's not snowing or it's not a heat wave. It's just spring.
Spring is everywhere. Yeah, it's been. We've had a couple of really nice days and had a 2.5 day long, very slow soak with some rain. So it's been typical spring, but it's been nice to get things started. I've been in the yard almost every day the last week or so.
We have a lot of the bees are already out upstate and they are bringing in pollen, and I think it's maple pollen. So it kind of like the whole part of the year where you're supposed to feed them sugar syrup and give them pollen patties has passed. They're just
wow.
I have a sugar feeder out, an outdoor sugar feeder. It's like a chicken feeder, chicken waterer, and they're ignoring it. They're just going out for the pollen.
It's kind of sad. My neighbor has a bush. It's kind of a laurel, I think, that is drawing tons of bees, and they're all bumblebees, which is great. But when I go over there and look, I don't see hardly any honeybees. I'm afraid that we've had another really bad winter for honeybees here.
Bummer.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, on the more positive side, we have a couple of neat things to talk about here. Bookmobiles, Greywater systems that the White House has adopted, and other cool stuff, right?
You bet. I want to talk a little bit about Bradford Pears.
There's a very popular suburban tree here called the Callery pear. Is that related to the Bradford pear?
It really is. They're pretty much the same thing, although the Callery is one of the root of the cultivar that they made the Bradford from. So it's actually a kind of a bit of an older pear.
It's a very popular tree to plant in the city, and contractors like it because it grows very fast and it flowers really nicely in the spring.
Yeah, but have you thought anything about the problems with the pear? I didn't really understand it until just I ran across this article called "The Curse of the Bradford Pear," and it was in the Greenville online, Greenville, Oklahoma, which is the community a few years ago that got hit bad by the tornado. Mm-hmm. And it was called Greenville to begin with, but they rebuilt it back as sustainable green. And everything is solar powered and has solar hot water and very sustainable buildings, since they're building back the entire little community. So I thought it's always an interesting thing. You can find that story on in several places, but it's been on Netflix before as a documentary.
Oh, about them rebuilding it as a green town?
Yeah, about them rebuilding it as a green town. And it's right in the center of the country there in Greenville, Oklahoma. But anyway, this is from the Greenville Online. And this guy every year, his name is Bill Sanders, rants and raves about the Bradford pear because it turns out that they're just becoming environmentally unsustainable, and it was a mistake to introduce them. I know in my region, I remember hearing that the Bradfords came because there was a blight that wiped out some of their spring flowering tree. And so this is actually the Department of Agriculture in 1964 developed this tree as a replacement for these flowering trees that were wiped out by the blight. And they thought that the trees were sterile, and it turns out they're not. And they also, by the way, have the weakest branch structure of any tree on the face of the earth.
Yes.
The angles at the crotch of the limbs is so narrow and so brittle that any amount of wind just tears these trees up and splits them right down the middle, which is a good thing because then you can chop the thing down. But the real problem with Bradfords, which there's also a variety that's extended the life of the Bradford called the Cleveland Select, is that they are self-sterile. They don't mate with each other. They don't mate with Bradford pears, but they mate with every other pear. And so we're getting these Bradford mixes, and they are actually beginning to, and they cross-pollinate, but they're beginning to revert back to what they call the Chinese Callery pear. And this pear, the birds love the little bitty pears. Bradfords do not make big eating pears. They make little bitty tiny fruit. The birds love them. They eat them. They fly out and they drop the seeds into all over the country now. And many times they're reverting back to this very base that the tree was hybrid from. And the Chinese Callery pear has an impenetrable, it says here, impenetrable thorny thickets that choke out life around the pines, dogwoods, maples, redbuds, oaks, and hickories. And the Calleries have a 4-inch thorn.
Wow. That
can't be mowed down. It'll share the tires of your tractor. You have to use a tracked vehicle to get them out.
Wow.
And they're just spreading everywhere. They're beautiful for a few days, and we have them everywhere here. Landscapers just loved them. But the city of Virginia Beach is, as fast as they can, taking them out and replacing them with other trees in public right-of-ways. So just something to think about. And I thought, well, maybe this guy's a little bit off. So I thought I'd double check him, and I went to the Virginia Tech Education Extension Service, Agricultural Extension Service, and they confirm everything. It's getting to be a real blight. And so if you have a Bradford pear, do everybody a favor and do yourself a favor, because you'll do it eventually anyway. Cut the thing down.
Yeah, the Callery pears in the city here, they a contractor put them in on Fifth Avenue in Brooklyn, and they all fork. They grow up like 4 feet, and then all the limbs fork off. And after like 3 or 4 years, the limbs started to cleave off if I had a snowstorm or a windstorm, and they slowly have been replaced because all the limbs come off of one point on the trunk. And it's this incredible weak point from an engineering standpoint.
Yeah, it's really bad. And I don't think I've ever heard of anybody killed by a Bradford pear, but I know of a lot of cars have been damaged when the wind gets up a little bit, and the pear will split and drop a limb on the car.
Boom.
So, boom. So we're trying to get rid of them here, and they're beautiful. And one of the ways you can always spot a Bradford pear, the native pears, the real fruit tree, are smaller in diameter, and they normally don't get above about 8 foot or so tall, while the Bradford pear is usually around 20, 25 foot tall, and it has those beautiful white flowers this time of year.
Yep.
But they kind of, I've noticed that the flowering doesn't last long. It greens out right behind them, and so it begins to fade in the green very quickly, and then the flowers drop off. So just try to forego, and that's actually one of the ways you can kind of tell if you've got a really good quality nursery you're working with, is just ask them if they carry Bradford pears, because the good people don't carry them anymore.
Wow. The litmus test for orchardists.
That's it. So that's my thing I wanted to talk about today, other than the fact that last week we lost our last Cairn Terrier, Zeke.
Yeah. He
was about 13 or so. He was a little rescue. Had a brain tumor. So, so we're dogless right now. But I'm with my rescue groups, and I think I have a line on another Cairn and maybe a Border Terrier. So we're going to be back in the dog business pretty quick.
Wow. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. I know we talked a little bit about it off the radio here, but that's always a big loss. But, I think actually we are more humane with our pets than we are with our family when it comes to end-of-life decisions.
Oh, yeah. We've lost 2 in the last year. We lost Sydney around Christmas and Zeke this last month. And, we take them into the vet, and they've set a catheter. And, we have a few private moments with the dog, and the vet comes in, and the dog just goes to sleep in your arms. And it's a wonderful experience. If they've got to go, that's sure the way to go.
Yeah, I would like that. So when that happens, Rick, you can push the plunger. I'm like,
Okay, I'm looking forward to it. So what's new in your life?
Bookmobiles.
Yeah,
Bookmobiles are the new food truck.
really?
Yeah. I
Okay.
I read the New York Times, and bookmobiles are hitting the road. And there is Parnassus Books, which is in Nashville, is the one that I read about. And I was just like, I thought that was the greatest thing in the world. And then I hadn't even finished reading the article, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of like the new food truck. And of course, they said, the bookmobile goes wherever the food trucks go. And I thought that was pretty cool because Parnassus Books was going to open a second store, and they said, why don't we try a bookmobile instead? So they bought a bookmobile from a library in Georgia that was, I guess it was mothballed or whatever. And they bought it for 10 grand. They fixed it up, and now it travels around town, and it goes wherever there's a food truck meetup, one of these food truck get-togethers.
Right.
Pulls the bookmobile. And it's a great mobile bookstore. Instead of having another brick and mortar second store, I think it's a brilliant way to have a presence, and you just go where the people are, go where your customer is. I thought that was pretty brilliant.
One of our big nurseries here, it's called McDonald's, has recently, and they just have one site, and it's kind of far away, but it's a terrific nursery. But they have gone and bought space in major parking lots now, and they put up chain link fence. And during the spring planting season, and then again in the fall, they run these things all over town to have little outlets, and they're got to be really cheap to run and cheap to rent because it's just parking lot and rent some chain link fence. And they have really expanded their business without building a whole new brick and mortar kind of affair.
There you go. And also, there's a bookstore called Little Shop of Stories in Decatur, Georgia, that turned a school bus into a bookstore. And Fifth Dimension Books in Austin has a bookmobile. And of course, because I was just in Austin, the land of food trucks, I did not see the bookmobile. But I'm glad I wasn't there for South by Southwest. It sounds like just a giant mass of people.
Yeah, that's what I hear too.
We were invited, but we were just too busy. So,
of course.
Yeah.
But I would be tempted to go just once, just to say I've been to South by Southwest.
Yeah, when it first started, it sounded very interesting, and I didn't have the money to go. And now that I could maybe afford to go, there's kind of you'd really have to focus. And the whole idea is to meet other people that you might be able to collaborate with or work with or whatever. And I think that is lost in the giant mass.
Yeah, I think so.
It's why I don't go to conferences anymore. I go to one conference a year now, and it's a real small one.
Oh, really? What kind of conferences do you go to?
I used to go to a lot of, internet web, social media conferences, because it's in New York. So you can get a day pass and go.
Right.
But a lot of the speakers all kind of said the same thing, and they're like, oh, social is everywhere. And I'm like,
Yeah, I got that part. Thanks.
And I kept on thinking I would meet interesting people, and I don't. So I go to a food blogger conference called Tech Munch, which is they have a couple of them around the country, and they're affordable, and it's a one-day conference, and there's not many people there. So it's great. And it's Tech Munch. So if you type in Tech Munch conference, it'll show up in your search engine. And I go to the one in New York City. And it's run by a woman named Babette, who has a site called bakespace.com, which is a very successful food recipe site.
I know that place. My problem with conferences was always, I'm just not social enough to really make use of them. I'm the guy that'll sit in the corner.
Yeah, that's the hard part, is you almost kind of have to know some people to meet up with before you get there, because if it's once you're there, it's kind of hard to meet people. Like I've actually emailed people and say, hey, are you going to this thing? I'll meet you there. And then you can meet up there and it's much better. But
oh yeah, that works out.
But anyway, just a tangent there.
Yeah. So from food trucks to bookmobiles to conferences, what else is on the agenda today?
Greywater systems. The White House just had a conference, and they are into Greywater systems to the point that there is a new system out there by a company called Nexus E-Water, and they are going to put a Greywater system into a new housing development in San Diego. And their system uses, essentially, it looks like a collection system and a cleaner system to treat the Greywater materials before they pump it out and water your lawn.
And maybe we ought to tell people what Greywater is, just in case somebody doesn't know.
Oh, Greywater is wastewater from your washing machine or your shower or I also think your kitchen sink. I'm not quite sure if people think that or not. But a majority of the soaps that you use, if you use a biodegradable soap in your washing machine, you have to pay attention for that part. But it's basically water with some soap in it and some dirt that's come off your clothes or your body, and it just fills up the sewer system, and it's kind of a waste of water. So you can do some simple cleaning of it and pump it out into your yard and water your garden or water your yard.
Yeah. And so essentially it could be anything except water from the commode.
Yes, that's called black water. Interestingly enough.
Yeah, it sure is.
So
what you have to do, if you plan from the beginning, you could build this system into your house. But most of us don't have that. And so what the people at, what's the other podcast?
Root Simple?
Root Simple, thank you. What they've done is just convert that comes out of their washing machine, which is a fair amount of water.
Yeah, what I like there is that they, for a super simple Greywater system, is you can basically take the output of your washing machine and water your fruit trees with it. You just have to pay attention to kind of soap you use. It doesn't meet building codes anywhere, but they basically pump it out, and I think they water an avocado tree with it. But the water pump in your washing machine is fairly powerful. So it can pump up, it could probably pump 10 feet of rise, what's called rise.
Right.
So your wastewater pipe that comes out of the back of your washing machine, if you're in the basement, you could pump it up and go out a window, those little basement windows, or if you want to drill a hole in your sill, you could do that too, and then have it go over to a orchard or something and water it there. You can't use a soaker hose because the lint from your washing machine will clog the soaker hose. So you need like a perforated pipe. And I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no kidding. You mentioned soaker hoses, and I remember your soaker hose video where you made the watering system, and it was all hooked together.
Yeah, we're having a new version of that coming out, actually.
Oh, really? Wait, I was at the Blue store and noticed that they must have been watching your video because now they're selling that as a kit.
Yeah.
And it has a solid hose across the top. It has like 3 or 4 T connectors, a hose connector, and then some end pieces. And so you can run, I think I saw a package that had 100 feet of soaker hose in it. So you could cut it and crimp it off with the end piece and run 3 or 4 lines down your garden. So you have started something, it looks like.
The influence I have, the power
That's
I have.
right. Yeah, you didn't think to patent that, did you?
No, I don't know if it's...
I don't think it is.
Yeah.
But it was a great idea, and it's something that I'm going to try this year.
I'm replacing the raised beds in my garden this year, so it's after, I think I've had them for 12 years. They were regular pine, southern pine, that I painted with linseed oil, and they've lasted that long. I think is a pretty good life for a raised bed.
No kidding.
And one of the beds, I'm going to try the new pressure-treated wood, which is a copper treatment instead of an arsenic treatment.
Right.
And I'll be interested in that because from what I've read, the treatment does not leach into the soil. And because it's a copper-based system, copper is actually used as a spray fungicide in natural gardening.
Right.
So I thought that was interesting. So it's much, much less of an issue. So I'm going to do one bed with the copper treated and see what happens with that.
Well, I'd be interested to see what happens.
And then for the soaker hose solution, I was thinking about using PVC. I built the last manifolds out of copper, and it was fun to solder everything, but copper is quite expensive.
No, it's not. I am probably the one human being in the world that cannot possibly sweat a joint.
Oh, no, most people can't.
I can't do it. It's beyond my capabilities.
People have to use less heat than they think they should. They usually get it way too hot. And the hardest part is soldering upside down. So you have to kind of sweat. My trick is I kind of build whatever it is. I clamp it to a vise and I build the whole thing and I plan it so that the last solder is either a lateral joint. So it makes it much easier that way.
Let's see. There's method to your madness.
But what's happening more and more is what's called PEX, P-E-X, plumbing, which is with the flexible, it's not PVC pipe, but it's a flexible plastic pipe with these crimper connections. And that goes fast.
I bet so. I've seen it. I've never understood how to work with it, so I've stayed away from it.
It involves some upfront costs. You have to buy some tools. They're crimper tools, and the well-made ones are expensive, but they're expensive because they work. The cheaper ones I've found do not work. We put in a radiant floor heating system in my friend's basement when he dug out the basement, and we used PEX to line the cement bed, basically. And so we used a lot of crimpers and stuff, and so I learned about it there. And it's pretty neat. The long-term on it is I don't know how well it ages. I mean, I just know that plastic generally wears out faster than copper, but
right.
We'll have to see. We'll have to see what goes on there. So,
well, I know when we replaced the hot water heater, all the external water plumbing they did was with PEX. So, maybe the professionals think it's going to work for a while.
Yeah, boy, it goes so much faster, and the plumbers can charge the same amount of money, and just the labor costs are less.
Oh, it's okay. It pays to have somebody who knows what they're doing.
Yeah. Sometimes you need a professional, and especially in the plumbing and electrical worlds.
In gas world, that's where the money is. I mean, if you're a gas contractor, you're printing money. It's just amazingly expensive. But if you make a mistake, it's amazingly, catastrophic.
Yeah. Don't do this. By the way, everyone, if you ever smell gas in your house, do not turn on any light switches. Bad things will happen.
I tell you, I've got lots and lots of stuff going on. I got tomatoes up, and they're growing here under the grow lights. So then I've started succession planting my tomatoes. So I've got I have several varieties of bush tomato that all come in. They're called determinate varieties, and they all come in at the same time, pretty much within just a week or so of each other. And then the bush stops producing for the most part, and so you need to get another one out there and of that variety. So I've got one planned for every 30 days of this particular variety. It's a new hybrid. I got it from the Florida State people.
I was going to ask about the garden gem. Is it called tomato gem?
Garden gem, yeah. Florida State University Key Lab is what it's called, and but it's a bush variety, and so I'm planning it out. So I'll have a new one every 30 days or so that I can keep the tomatoes coming all summer long, I hope. Nice.
I have some lettuce planted, and I put some parsley in. That's where I am.
I screwed up with my lettuce planting. I have two of the hooded little greenhouses like you built.
Yep.
And I planted lettuce underneath one, got it started from seed. And I just realized that I need that bed for the tomatoes this year because that's the bed I'll rotate into. I have a 3-bed rotation that I try to move things around with. And that helps keep the diseases down, particularly blight, which is a big problem for tomatoes here. And so I'll just rotate my vegetable garden around so that I don't plant the same thing 2 years in a row, or 1 year, 2 years in a row. That's it.
Right.
And so it's working, but I just screwed up and planted my lettuce, and it's sprouting, and it looks really good. But I'm going to have to get it out of there and turn that bed over to tomatoes.
Because did you overplant tomatoes, you think, or you think you're going to be like handing them out to people, or?
I planted enough of these tomato plants that I'll be able to give them to people and say, try this, see what you think. Try this, see what you think. I'm keeping track. I try to keep track of who I'm giving things to see, so I'll know which varieties are working best in my neighborhood, sort of. Because all of these that I have right now are all new varieties from the Florida State people.
Cool. Yeah, actually, a couple of people, I got an email, or was it a comment, from a couple of people who actually ordered those tomato seeds because of you. So thank you.
Oh, you bet. I'm desperate to find a tomato that is blight resistant.
Yeah.
Because it's killing me. 1 year I had a perfect looking plant that was really flowering. I mean, everything was going right with that plant. And this is last year. And overnight it just died, just wilted away. And you could see the fungus just growing on the plant. And that's the late blight.
Yeah, I just don't get excited about tomatoes anymore because I know they'll all get whacked. So.
Oh, but this year I kept a small tomato bush and basil going in under my grow lights, and I've had at least a little bit of tomato and basil all winter long.
I'm looking forward to the basil. I just actually bought some at the store, and there was just this kind of amazing olfactory thing that reminds you of summer.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
that's nice.
It's pretty much that's getting to be the only herb that I grow. I really won't go out and grab a handful of oregano or now rosemary. We have a lot of rosemary, but other than basil and rosemary, probably I don't grow any more herbs just because we don't use them that much.
Yeah, that's all you need. So
yeah, life with basil.
Wow.
All right. Well, I need to get outside. I've got a compost bin to build and then get all my leaves into it. I screwed up last winter. I was in a hurry to make my leaf mulch.
Yep.
In my big leaf bin. And I didn't run over the leaves with the lawnmower like you usually do and then rake them up and put them in the bin. I just put the whole leaves in the bin. They're not really composting down this year like they ought to.
Yeah, you got to break them up. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to move them to a new place, and because I need that bed for growing vegetables out front.
Cool. All right. Well, Rick, thank you for the time here. Appreciate that.
Oh, it's always great to talk with you, my friend.
And everyone, thanks for listening. If you're on iTunes, would you leave us a review? That's always very handy. Helps us keep up there in the rankings. And any thoughts or comments, it's radio@gardenfork.tv. That's radio@gardenfork.tv. So make it a great day. We'll see you.
Okay, talk to you later, my friend. Bye-bye.
Garden Fork's theme music is used under license from uniquetracks.com.